We have Mr. Fakafanua, who is the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Tonga, the Chairman of the Environmental and Climate Change Committee, and also the youngest ocean elder. So without much delay, I'm eager to hear from our experts here who will bring the diverse perspectives to engage with you all in what I'm sure promises to be a very insightful conversation this evening. So without further delay, let's dive in. But if you allow me, I quickly move to Mr. Fakafanua. So coming to Tonga, it seems that there are certain zones which are very vulnerable and there are a lot of projects going on, for instance, in Tonga Tapu. So if we look at today how local communities can be embedded and become active co-creators of building a sustainable and resilient maritime strategy and climate adaptation, what are the things you would be willing to share about the Tonga experience and the way forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And I just want to acknowledge the rest of our distinguished fellow delegates and panelists. And of course, to be part of the Great Ocean Dialogue, this is my first time here. So it's really an honor to be part of this conversation. To your question, I think really traditional knowledge informing climate change adaptation is pivotal today because of where we are in terms of where the globe is in our mitigation adaptation. Some people question whether the climate is changing. For us at the forefront, especially as small island developing states or large ocean states, we are experiencing it day to day. Evidently, in 2022, we had a major external event that impacted us. It was a big volcanic eruption where the shockwave circulated the Earth. I think maybe 6 times. It was heard from Alaska. It was heard from New Zealand. The wave reached the coast of Chile and also reached as far as Japan. And in the northern island of New Zealand, their marinas were affected by this wave. So when we talk about how our cultures and our indigenous people can adapt to that changing climate, it's important to note that in Tonga, we have a deficit of infrastructure. So before you can talk about our resiliency, we are already at a deficit. So we're not talking from zero. And when you put it that way, you look at our infrastructure needs, there is a deficit of about $1 billion over the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years. So when you talk about resilient infrastructure and investment and the need to collaborate with our donor partners to create a more resilient infrastructure that can protect our future and our livelihoods, what we do have is our 3,000-year-old culture. And after the consecutive environmental impacts from natural disasters, what we experience is that we are a resilient culture. Our people are very resilient. They bounce back. The day after a volcanic eruption and tsunami, people were out there sweeping the roads because of all the ashfall and all that. So I think in terms of climate adaptation, a lot can be learned from the traditional knowledge that people have and their ability to be resilient in the face of climate change and external natural disasters. In terms of like the policies and how they can be shaped by traditional knowledge, what you'd notice from the coastal areas is that areas where mangroves were not cut down were more resilient and were more protected from the tsunami. And so traditional knowledge would say mangroves need to be planted for coastal resilience. And economic development or growth would say, no, we need to turn these into ports and wharfs and use them for tourism. So similarly, fish migration seasons and watching bird migrations can also inform people on food security and where they can find livelihoods in terms of artisanal fishing. There are customary knowledges on MPAs. There are areas that are restricted by culture that can now inform our policies on marine protected areas. So a lot of this traditional knowledge that was probably overlooked in the past is now starting to inform our policies on becoming more adaptive to the changing climate. My last example that I want to talk about is the traditional shape of our fale, which is what we call houses, are rounded. And what we're finding now with wind tunnel studies is that those traditional houses were more resilient than the modern style buildings. So now we're looking back at old architecture that was informed by thousands of years of climate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this, very insightful. So we see here how ancient wisdom is actually still very relevant. And speaking about architecture and our history, thank you so much. So same question for Tunga, and if you can also try to suggest how the youth can be active actors in the design of resilience adaptation efforts.
Thank you. I think as youth, the global trend right now is to be disenfranchised from our political systems because of the increasing lack of trust in institutions. And so in order for your voice to be heard, I think it's important for the youth to be informed and also to participate in your democratic right. So make your voice count and ensure that your policy makers and your decision makers and your politicians are reactive to your needs. And as people of a developing country, there is this thing called climate injustice, because our developing countries are not at fault for climate change. The industrial world, or the West, developed and became wealthy because of burning fossil fuels. And there lies the injustice. It is up to the next generation to not only come up with the solution, but also deal with the consequences in terms of adaptation. And so framing it in that way, coming from a small island developing state, we have no bearing. We can decarbonize and go net zero tomorrow and still have no bearing on what will happen to our environment, to our islands. Because of rising sea levels, we're very vulnerable. Because of ocean acidification, because of coral bleaching, our food security is at risk. Because of rising sea level, the water lens will compromise the salinity of the water that we have access to. Because of climate change, we have to become more adaptive in terms of HADR and responding to extreme climate events. From extreme weather events where we go from flooding, we can go into drought. How do we ensure food security? How do we ensure agriculture is sustained in uncertain times, especially when we don't have the facilities or the capability and resources to react properly?
Thank you. We had the speaker of Tonga who wanted to bounce back on something, and then...
Yeah, it was just about the third to last question. I think as a local community member, you need to take agency. And there are certain windows of opportunity or doors that you can knock on to get what you want for your local community. So you need to find out what those pathways and entryways are, whether it's through your local member of parliament or through your regional representative, or I'm not too sure of the government system here in India, but I'm sure that there are official pathways beyond the assistance. So don't wait for the government to implement a project. You can be proactive. So I think that's the what I want to advise.
So thank you very much for this very amazing and insightful session.
Thank you. Thank you.